Greetings and peace, my friends. This is Miss Nikki's Traveling Story Bag coming to you with just a little short story. Now, this is a story about a 13-year-old boy. His grandmama is sick, and his mom says, hey, I want you to ride to the store and pick up a few things for your grandmother and take them to her house on his bike. They live in the same neighborhood, so he says, okay, Mom. And so she makes out a list, and she gives it to him. And on that list are lemons, soup, crackers, honey, cough drops, and tea. So he takes a note, he puts it into his pocket, and then his mom gives him a few dollars. He runs out, jumps on his bicycle, and rides off to the grocery store. But on his way, he saw two of his friends. And they said, hey, you want to come and play football with us? And he said, nah. They said, come on, we're just going to throw a couple. And he says, well, maybe just a couple. So he hops on his bike and he rides over to the open field with his football, and they begin to throw, and they're having such a wonderful time. 2 or 3 or 4 other boys came by and they said, hey, can we play? And he said, well, sure. And so what was just going to be a couple of throws turned into a football game, and it went longer than he thought. So when they got finished playing, he says to his friends, hey, what time is it? And after his friend told him what time it was, and he realized that that had turned into over an hour, whoa. He hurried up, jumped onto his bike, pedaled off to the grocery store, and when he got there, he went into his pocket to get the list out, but it wasn't there. It must have fallen while he was out playing football game. So he tried to go by memory. Let's see. On the list, there was lemons, but instead, he bought his grandmother an orange. And on the list, there was soup. He remembered the soup. And on the list were crackers. He remembered the crackers. And after that, he was like, what else is it? Let's see, honey. Honey. He remembered the honey. And then next on the list were cough drops. He couldn't think of the cough drops. He just could not remember. But he figured if you were at home sick, you would need ice cream. And so he got his grandmother some ice cream. He figured if you're sick, you're definitely going to need some ice cream to help you to feel better. And so he jumped onto his bike from the grocery store and he pedaled as quickly as he could to grandmother's house. But when he got there, he noticed that his mom's van was in the driveway waiting for him. And so he went inside, and when he went inside, he was expecting to hear screams and yells and where have you been? But instead, his grandmother hugged him and his mother hugged him and said, we are so worried about you. Where have you been? And he had to apologize. He said, I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry, Grandma. But I stopped off and I played a little football with my friends. And his mother just shook his head. And she began to continue giving her mother the soup. And his siblings were there waiting. You see, Mom had to stop doing what she was doing, which was homework, preparing for dinner, while he ran off to the grocery store to get a few things. So everything was thrown way off. And it reminds me of a story about a prophet named Jonah. You see, Jonah was given something to do by God. And that thing was to go to a certain place to deliver a certain message to a people that were there. The city was called Nineveh. And those people were doing the right thing in the wrong way and to the wrong creator. And so Jonah decided, no, I'm not going to go there. I'm going to go someplace else because I don't want to do that. And in the process of him doing what he wanted to do, a storm raged in the sea in the boat that they were sailing in. And everybody in that boat nearly lost their lives because Jonah didn't do what he was supposed to do. And it angered God. And so he ended up being thrown off of that boat. Okay? Long story short, Jonah ended up crying out and begging for mercy from God because he didn't do what he was supposed to do. Now, Kids, just like the boy and just like Jonah, sometimes we forget this very important thing. We forget what our responsibility is. The boy had a responsibility to get to the grocery store, to get those much needed items for his grandma because she wasn't feeling well. Jonah had a responsibility, and that was to get to those people and tell them what they needed to know to help save them. And see, when we do what we want to do, we can always forget our responsibility, the role, the very important role that we have, you know. And just like those people got tossed to and fro in that ship they were riding with Jonah, his grandmother was waiting, his mother was worried, she couldn't finish homework or dinner. So the next time we have a responsibility, let's take care of first things first, because we never really know what will happen if we don't take care of our responsibilities. But the possibility of the worst things happening could happen. So why don't you guys sit down, chat with it in your e-learning spaces with your teachers and even with your parents tonight. What do you think they'll say? How do you think they would handle it? Okay? So until next time, here's Miss Nikki's Traveling Story Bag checking out. You guys be blessed.